Red light, green light up there.
You good? Okay. I'd like to call a meeting to order for a PZA for November, it'll be Wednesday, November 20th. You get a roll call, please.
Mr. Featherling?
Here.
Mr. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Washington?
Aye.
Mr. Tholen? Ms. Polk? Mr. Payton?
Aye.
Ms. Peters?
Present.
Ms. Dunbar? Mr. Kinzinger?
Here.
Mr. Fairfield?
Present.
Mr. Smith? Mr. Swanson? Mr. Dennell? Mr. Long?
Present.
Mr. Wheeler? Mr. Seroy?
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Is there anyone here for public comment? Gentleman in the back, you're there? No? Butch? Okay. Okay, we're good. Nobody for public comment. Everybody received the minutes online or in a packet. Does anyone like to make a motion to accept the minutes? Okay, Mr. Washington, Ms. Peters, all in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, motion carries. Okay, we're gonna have the building report for October 2019. Can I get a motion to approve that? Okay, Mr. Polk, second. Mr. Long? Okay, any discussion? Mr. Skimmerhorn's gonna explain that to us.
Again, in your packet, turn on. Thank you. In your packet is the monthly building report for October 2019. Last month, we issued 2 new house permits, total valuation of $643,000. Total permits issued was 98 at a value of $3.9 million, and we collected fees and revenue of $31,619.
Okay, we had a motion and a second to approve. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Stormwater MS4 program discussion. That's Mr. Skimmerhorn again. Can we get a motion to approve the?
There's no motion.
Oh, we got a discussion.
Just
Okay.
a discussion.
Okay, Mr. Skimmerhorn's going to give us a discussion on that.
Well, just like every month, I ask if any board members have any stormwater issues they would like to bring to the planning department's attention.
Okay, does anyone have anything for him? Anything other than the usual? Okay, and we have an unsafe structure at 2338 East 10,000 North Road, Manteno, Illinois, owned by Municipal Trust and Savings Trust 2231, Adam Baumgartner, trustee, referral to State's Attorney's Office for redemption. Would that be Delbert explanation?
Remediation.
Mediation.
Thank you. Sure. As the chairman said, the property is, can you switch this over? The property is located at 2338 East 1000 North Road. It's on just north of Manteno Lake on Manteno Lake Road. 10,000 North Road, which is also Manteno Lake Road. It's owned by Municipal Trust Savings Bank, Trust 2231, and the beneficiary of that trust is Adam Baumgartner. The property has been sitting there for several years, well, at least 2 or 3 years in the condition that it's in. You can see some of the photos there of the property. The back door is standing wide open. Windows are open and or broken out. The porch is unsafe to walk on. That yellow line you see in there is a natural gas line. We do not know if it's actually containing natural gas or not. And when you walk in the door, there's no floor in the structure. The doors are open and the floor is not there. So conceivably, you could fall right into the crawl space if you were to enter that property unknowing of the situation there. There's some more photos of it. There's a hole in the back wall. It's in pretty bad shape. Some of the history of the property. The current owner purchased it in 2016. They gutted the house without any permits. We issued a stop work order when we found out about it. They did come in to get a demolition permit to demolish the inside of it in 2017. And then we issued another stop work order in April 2017 because they were continuing additional rebuild work without a permit. The original permit was just to demolish the structure. They came in to inquire about a permit, never came back. So we never issued another permit on the property, and it's been sitting there in this condition since then. Over that time, though, we've been sending out letters and violation notices with little or no response from the owners. They, in October of this year, we got a judgment in the Kankakee County Courts for $1,500, and the owner did not appear in court in that particular instance. So we're trying to figure out, what do we do now? So what we're asking for is permission to send this to the state's attorney's office for remediation, which could include demolition or boarding up of the structure, which would have a price tag on it that the county would have to bear if we went that far.
No, right on the line. Okay.
Nancy is here. Is there anything she'd like to say about it? Oh, yeah.
Second. Okay, Mr. Donald, second. Okay, we'll open up for discussion. Ms. Peters? Oh, Ms. Pope? You raised your hand.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, Ms. Peters?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do you have any estimates on the cost of a demolition and or a boarding up or a rough? We won't hold you to it.
Yes, based on experience, I'm guessing anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000 to board up, and anywhere from $15,000 to $25,000 to demolish and return the site to a vacant lot. There's a lot of variables in there as far as whether there's asbestos, lead paint, things like that. So,
Okay. Is anyone else? Mr. Kinzinger?
Is there any precedent for doing this, and what does remediation mean, whatever the state's attorney thinks?
I read that.
I will. Nancy's here. I'll let her address
Okay.
that
Okay, thanks.
question.
Nancy's in the back. Go ahead.
Hi.
You said.
There is a history, I want to say about 2016-ish. There was a house on Cardinal Drive that actually there had been a structural fire at. The owner had not done anything to fix that. Was it about 2016 maybe? In fact, we had gotten a temporary restraining order injunction emergency on the house because there had been a swimming pool that kids were getting into that hadn't been drained. Mosquitoes, it was an issue. We did that. Then we went through the process. We were allowed to demo it. At that time, though, somebody did come and buy the property, and so we didn't actually have to demo it. So our hope is as we proceed on this property, we probably would seek to have it boarded up first, because we can't allow an open subfloor to be there, especially now that we know it. So we need to kind of proceed because it's a safety issue. We would probably try to do a boarding up first. It's my understanding there has been some interest in the property. It's just trying to get the owner to maybe sell it. So maybe if we start moving forward, maybe he would decide it's not worth it and sell it, and then somebody who would take care of the property would get it.
Okay. Mr. Kinzinger?
So when the county boards it, then there's a lien placed on the property for that value?
Yes.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Ms. Peters?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maybe towards Nancy. So if there is a judgment against the property, would the new owner be liable for that cost? I guess maybe that the lien on there, but.
Well, what had happened, it'll be like if you go to sell a house or buy a house and there may be a lien on the property, that would be encompassed in part that the seller would get. So it would be taken from their profits or their proceeds. So that's where that would get paid out of.
Thank you.
Okay. I have a couple quick questions for you. When that property, say you started the process on the demolition, had the contractor out or whatever to get ready to get started, and then it actually, would that become an auction property? Would that just become a for sale by county, or how would that go?
I'm not 100% sure. We've not made it that far through something, because normally once we start the proceeding, at least when we've had experience with it, when we started the proceeding, then the owner just sells it and doesn't want to deal with it anymore. It doesn't actually, it's not necessarily that it's our property. We're not, we're just demoing it, and then, because we need to get rid of alleviate the hazards, the safety hazards.
So if we have a, excuse me, if we have a bigger lien on it than the bank does on it, who do we actually become the main lien holder then?
I mean, that could be a possibility. We'd have to look and see where we end up on it.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any questions? So all in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, we approve it, Mr. Skimmerhorn.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up is ZBA case 19-13 is a request for a text amendment to the county code 121-295, sitting of a wind energy conservation system. Petitioner is Kankakee County. Can you get a motion to approve? Okay, Mr. Fairfield. Okay, next to him over there, we got Mr. Payton. Okay, any discussion? You get a rundown, Dell, or?
Sure. If you recall, last month, this case was before this committee, and it was determined that it would be tabled until this month. So I'm bringing it back. There was a lot of additional discussion on the wind farm wind energy ordinance in general, and but it didn't really pertain to this actual case. So we're bringing this case back. If the committee would like to discuss wind energy ordinance in more detail, we can certainly put that on a future agenda to do so. But anyway, what we're asking for here is to increase the height of wind towers, the maximum height allowable for wind towers, from 499 feet to 699 feet, which is section 3, item A in the ordinance. And along with that, to increase the minimum setback distance from a participating dwelling from the greater of 1,000 feet or 1.5 times the tower height, and the minimum distance from a non-participating existing dwelling to the greater of 1,200 feet or 2 times the tower height. Those are the 3 changes being asked today. Zoning board did hear this case and voted 5-0 to recommend the approval. There were no objections.
Okay, any questions or comment? Barring none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Next up is ZBA case 19-06 is a request for a variance to section 121-398 period 4 A, C, D, and E billboard in the C2 commercial district on a parcel generally situated in section 16 Bourbonnais Township. The petitioner is Jerry Fozzard, property owner and applicant. Could we get a motion to approve?
I make the motion to agree with the findings of fact.
Okay,
The recommendation.
Second that.
Recommendation.
so you go with the recommendation of ZBA.
I'll
Get a second, Mr. Kinzinger? Okay, any discussion?
Let me run through this one.
Okay, go ahead now.
Gets a little complicated. All right, the original proposal is on the screen up. Oh no, that is the final proposal. The property is located right on Arthur Birch Drive, just about at the intersection of the I-57 southbound ramp onto Route 50 and Illinois Route 50. It's one of the properties just in front of what was Arthur Birch Trailer Park. I think it's Oak Creek Trailer Park now, mobile home park. Had a public hearing on July 8th and it was canceled due to improper notice. August 12th, the case was continued to allow for the modification of their request. September 9th, case continued to allow for new findings and staff report to be developed. October 7th, the case continued on request of applicant. November 4th, the final proposal was received, reviewed, and the recommendation to deny the proposal was from the zoning board was 6-0, and that was entered into the record. The original request was for a 3-sided billboard located, that would be the little green triangle there. The property is outlined in red, contains a single-family home and a detached garage. And at that time, they were asking for 4 variances. First of all, our ordinance only allows a 2-face sign, so they were asking for a variance for the 3rd face. They were asking for a variance for the sign to be 40 feet high instead of the required 30 feet. They were also asking to reduce the setback from the road to 10 feet instead of the required 40 feet, and a variance to allow more than 1 billboard in a 2,500 foot interval. Our ordinance only allows 1 billboard for every 2,500 feet radius around it. So they modified that request September 9th and brought back 2 billboards, one facing the off-ramp and one facing Route 50. Under this scenario, only one variance was required, they decided that they would meet the height and setback requirements, and just the variance to allow more than one billboard in a 2,500 foot interval was asked for. So at that time, since the proposal had changed so much and they did not change their findings of fact, the zoning board felt that those findings no longer applied to this, and they continued the case to give them time to develop new findings. So, along with developing new findings, though, on November 4th, they also came back with yet a third proposal, which was 2 signs, one facing towards Route 50, one facing the off-ramp, but only on one pole. That's the area outlined in red there. Under this scenario, they still needed the setback from right-of-way. That sign only sits 13 feet from the right-of-way, not the 40 feet as required. And they still needed the variance to allow more than one billboard in a 2,500 foot interval. Just a little background there. There's the 2,500 foot radius around that proposed sign, and there's already 5 billboard signs within that circle. So this would be adding 2 more signs, so it'd be 7 signs within 2,500 feet of each other. Findings of fact. First one is there a particular hardship to the owner? The board felt that the configuration of the property is not unique, and therefore no hardship existed. Finding number 2, that the conditions for this request are unique to the property in question and would not apply generally to other properties within the same zoning classification. The board found that the property is in the same configuration it was in when the applicant purchased the property, and therefore the applicant purchased the property knowing that a billboard could not be erected upon it. Number 3, the granting of the variance would not be detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to the property or improvements in the neighborhood in which the property is located. The board finds that the applicant is asking to relax codes that address safety, and those safety measures should not be taken away to appease the applicant's desires. And number 4, that the variance will not impair an adequate supply of light, air, or air to adjacent properties, substantially increase the congestion of the public street, increase the danger of fire, endanger the public safety, or substantially diminish or impair property values within the neighborhood. The board found that the reduced setback will endanger the public safety, and that no useful information concerning the sign's effects on property values was presented. Further, the board found that any information provided regarding the effect on property values was the opinion of the applicant and not based on facts. So, there were objectors present. Both the Village of Bourbonnais and the Village of Bradley objected to approving the variances for the sign. And ZBA recommended the denial of the request 6-0.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Skimmerhorn. Is there any discussion to take place at this time? Okay. Ms. Peters?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is there any way on that property that he could have a sign?
Not a billboard,
Not a
because the billboard has the 2,500 foot
Okay,
radius, not without a variance.
all right, thank you.
But if they were, the property is zoned commercial, even though it has a single family home on it. So it would be possible to have a sign to advertise a business if they were to convert that property into a business. Advertising signs and business signs are a different classification in the ordinance and different requirements for each.
Okay. Mr. Smith?
Thank you, sir. So how do the other 5 signs get there?
Well, some of them are in the municipalities.
Okay.
Okay, so that's not approved by us. Let's go back to
But our 2,500 feet still applies.
Yes, and keep in mind that if you move that red circle to around one of those others, that 2,500 feet may not exist. It's 2,500 feet from the sign itself, so that's a moving target. If you move that circle over to one, then 5, 4, and 3 may drop out of it. So there may not be any signs within 2,500 feet of that particular sign. Okay, but when we put the circle around this proposal, there's 5 of them. I know number 2 is in the Village of Bradley, number 3 is in the Village of Bradley, and number 5 is in the Village of Bourbonnais. So those were all issued by those municipalities, and we have no control over that.
Okay. I have a quick question, Delbert. if this was denied anyway, is there any way that they also have to go in front of the state, so they wouldn't go to the state until we had approved it, or can they go to the state and come back again?
I don't know that they need to go in front of the state.
Because I thought within 1,000 feet of an interchange, it has to be recommended by the IDOT.
I would have to look into that.
Yeah, okay. It came up and.
But certainly
down
the
way a little
local
bit, a couple
approval would
times.
have to come first.
Okay. Anyone else? Barring none, all in favor say to deny this and accept agree with the ZBA and accept their denial of the findings. All in favor say aye. Aye. Nay. Motion carries. Okay, next up is ZBA case 1914, a request for a special use permit number 13C. It's for a single-family home in the R1 single-family residential district on a parcel generally situated in section 14 of Bourbonnais Township. The petitioner is Michael Olenek, Jr., property owner and applicant. Get a motion to approve. Okay, Mr. Kinzinger, you get a second. Mr. Smith, okay, get some discussion here. Anyone have any questions or anything about this? Delbert, want to give us a little
I can give you a
rundown?
little rundown.
Yeah.
Mr. Olnick owns the two properties outlined in red on the map there and is going to be combining the two into one parcel, which would be a 9.16 acre parcel that's zoned single-family residential. Our ordinance requires that a single-family home on a parcel in that district that is on a parcel larger than 2 acres requires a special use permit, so in order to construct the home. So that is what Mr. Olnick is asking for, is for a special use permit to construct one single-family home on that property. Zoning board recommends approval 6-0. There were no objectors present.
Okay, any discussion from anyone? Okay, barring none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Against, nay. Next up, we have transportation again with Delbert. It'd be a rural transit update. Mr. Wilson isn't here this morning, so Delbert's going to handle the
I'll
transportation.
just give you a quick rundown for the first quarter of fiscal year 2020, which started July 1st, September 30, through September 30th of this year. The state's fiscal year starts in July, so we had 11,479 trips during that time period, which is an increase of 9.6% over that same quarter last year. But it was a decrease of 3.7% from the previous quarter before July 1st. Of those trips, 4,979 were provided on the demand response service, and 6,500 trips were provided on the Moments commuter route. And that is what I have for a update on show bus.
That doesn't require a motion or anything.
It does not. It's just
Okay.
a report.
Does anyone have any questions about that? Okay, barring none, let's move on to anybody have any old business? Okay, Mr. Wheeler, no old business? Nothing on old business, okay. Any new business by anybody? No, okay. How about a motion to adjourn? Ms. Peters, Mr. Payton, all in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you, have a nice day.